The pickup truck rattled over the last cattle guard, kicking up a plume of dust that hung in the still Montana air like a question mark. Daniel Reed kept his eyes on the gravel road ahead, both hands steady on the wheel. The kind of steady that came from years of forcing them to be. 43 years old. Former Navy SEAL who'd traded desert deployments for mountain silence. In the passenger seat, Valor sat perfectly upright. 7 years old, German Shepherd. Black and tan coat that caught the afternoon light. The dog's amber eyes tracked the landscape through the windshield with the same methodical sweep Daniel had taught him in another life. Left to right. Pause. Assess. Continue. The road climbed through ponderosa pines that grew thicker as they moved deeper into the mountains. Daniel cracked the window. Cold air rushed in, carrying the scent of pine resin and snowmelt from the peaks, still visible in the rearview mirror. Valor's ears rotated forward. Daniel glanced at him. Just trees, boy. The dog's expression didn't change. Valor didn't do reassurance. He did calculation. They'd been driving for 6 days. 6 days of highway motels with parking lots facing the road where Daniel could see the truck from the window. 6 days of gas station coffee and meals eaten in silence. 6 days of putting distance between himself and the last place that knew his name. The GPS chirped. You have arrived at your destination. Daniel killed the engine. The silence that followed was so complete it made his ears ring. No traffic, no voices, no helicopters cutting the sky into pieces. Just wind through pine branches. The tick of the cooling engine. Valor's steady breathing beside him. He opened the door, stepped out, stretched his back until something popped. The land spread before him like a promise he wasn't sure he believed in. 40 acres, most of it forested. A clearing where someone had tried to build something years ago and given up. Foundation stones covered in moss, rusted fence posts leaning at angles that suggested surrender. It was perfect. Valor jumped down from the truck, landed without sound, and immediately began a perimeter check. Nose to the ground, systematic, professional. Daniel watched him work. The dog moved like water, efficient and unstoppable. Daniel pulled his duffel from the truck bed. Inside 3 changes of clothes, a shaving kit, a Glock 19 he'd never had to use outside of a range, and a framed photograph he never looked at but couldn't throw away. He set the bag on the tailgate and looked at his hands. 43 years old, calloused, a scar across the left knuckles from a training accident in Coronado that felt like it happened to someone else. They were good hands, strong hands, hands that had pulled men from burning vehicles and held pressure on wounds until the medevac arrived, hands that had signed the order. He closed his eyes. The memory came anyway, uninvited. It always did. Sand, heat that turned the air into something solid. The village compound 300 meters out. His voice on the radio calm and clear. Oscar 2, you are cleared, hot. The explosion had been surgical. Textbook. Exactly what they'd planned. Except for the 2 civilians in the basement they didn't know about. Daniel opened his eyes, forced his breathing to steady. In through the nose. 4 counts. Hold. Out through the mouth. 4 counts. Valor appeared at his side. Pressed his shoulder against Daniel's leg. Not cuddling, not comfort, just presence. The dog knew the signs, the 1,000-yard stare, the tension in the brow, the way Daniel's right hand would curl into a fist without him realizing it. I'm good, Daniel said. Valor sat, looked up at him. Gray-blue eyes met amber, a moment of understanding that needed no words. I'm good, Daniel said again. The dog's tail swept the ground once. Acknowledgement, not agreement. He caught his reflection in the truck's side mirror. Gray-blue eyes stared back, the eyes of a man who'd seen too much and was trying to forget. But forgetting never worked. He'd learned that the hard way. Daniel pulled on his olive field jacket, the elbows worn thin from years of use, and started walking the property line. The jacket had been with him through 3 deployments. It was as much a part of him as the scars. Pine Ridge, Montana, population 412 according to the sign at the town limits. Downtown consisted of 1 paved street with diagonal parking, a hardware store, a post office, a bar called the Timber Axe, and Maggie's Diner, which looked like it had been serving coffee since the Eisenhower administration. Daniel parked in front of the diner. Through the window, he could see a half-dozen people scattered across vinyl booths. An older man in a John Deere cap reading a newspaper, a young couple sharing a plate of fries. A waitress with gray hair pulled back in a ponytail, moving between tables with the efficiency of someone who'd been doing this for 30 years. He wore his usual the olive field jacket with worn elbows, red and navy flannel shirt, underneath green cargo pants and scuffed brown boots. The uniform of a man who'd stopped caring about appearances and started caring about function. Stay, Daniel told Valor. The dog's ears went flat, not submission, disapproval. I'll bring you something. Valor's expression suggested he'd believe it when he saw it. The diner smelled like coffee and bacon grease and something baking in the back. The kind of smell that belonged to a time before MRS and forward operating bases. The kind of smell that felt like someone's grandmother. The waitress looked up from the coffee pot she was refilling. Her name tag said Maggie. Help you hon, coffee, black, and whatever's good. Maggie smiled. Everything's good, but the meatloaf's better. Meatloaf, then. She nodded toward the window. That your dog? Yes, ma'am. German Shepherd? Yes, ma'am. Handsome animal. She poured coffee into a mug that had seen better decades. You just passing through, or you the one bought the Henriksen place? Daniel wrapped both hands around the mug. The heat felt good. I'm the one. Thought so. Small town. Word travels. She pulled out her order pad. You military. Daniel's jaw tightened. Was. My son was Army. Fort Benning. Came back different. She said it matter-of-factly the way you'd comment on the weather. That land you bought. Good land. Remote. Quiet. That's what I'm looking for. Most people are looking for something when they come here. She tucked the pencil behind her ear. Question is whether they find it. She walked away before Daniel could respond. He sipped the coffee. It was good. Strong and hot, and exactly what coffee should be. Through the window he could see Valor in the truck sitting perfectly still, watching the street with the focus of a sentry on duty. The meatloaf arrived 15 minutes later. It came with mashed potatoes and green beans and a roll that was still warm. Daniel ate slowly, methodically, tasting everything. It had been a long time since food was something he paid attention to. When Maggie came back with the check, she was carrying a takeout container. For your dog, she said. Can't have him sitting out there hungry. Daniel looked at the container. What is it? Sausage. Made it myself. How much? On the house. Welcome to Pine Ridge. Daniel carried the container to the truck. Opened the passenger door. Set it on the seat. From Maggie. Valor leaned forward, sniffed the container with the thoroughness of a bomb technician examining suspicious luggage. His nose twitched. Once. Twice. Then he turned his head away. Just turned it. Deliberately, like a food critic dismissing a particularly offensive dish. Daniel stared at him. Seriously. Valor's expression was impassive. The sausage had been evaluated and found wanting. She made it herself. The dog's tail remained motionless. His opinion was final. Daniel closed the container. You're a snob. Valor's ears rotated forward, possibly agreement. Daniel couldn't help it. He laughed. Actually laughed. The sound felt strange in his throat, like using a muscle that had atrophied. Fine, more for me. He started the truck, pulled back onto the main road. In the rearview mirror, Maggie stood in the diner window watching them leave. She raised one hand in a small wave. Daniel lifted 2 fingers from the steering wheel in response. The land looked different in late afternoon light. The shadows longer. The trees darker. Daniel parked near the clearing and got out. Valor jumped down and immediately resumed his security patrol, nose to the ground working in expanding circles. Daniel pulled his tent from the truck bed, military surplus. 4-season. The kind that could handle anything Montana could throw at it. He'd pitched tents in sandstorms and monsoons and on mountain ridges where the wind tried to tear them from the ground. This should be easy. 20 minutes later, the tent stood at a 15-degree angle, one corner sagging like a drunk leaning against a lamppost. Daniel stepped back, examined his work. Good enough. Valor walked over, sat down, tilted his head to exactly the same angle as the tent. The look in the dog's eyes was pure judgment. It's functional, Daniel said. Valor's head tilted further. Now the angle matched perfectly. The comparison was unmistakable. It'll keep the rain out. The dog's expression suggested this was debatable. Daniel rubbed his face. I'm a Navy SEAL, not a Boy Scout. Valor stood, walked to the tent, sniffed the sagging corner, looked back at Daniel. The message was clear. You're better than this. Fine. Daniel spent another 20 minutes repitching the tent. When he finished, it stood straight and taut the way it was designed to. Professional, squared away. Valor walked around it once, sniffed the entrance, sat down and thumped his tail twice against the ground. Approval. Thank you, Sergeant, Daniel said. The dog's ears pricked up. He'd always liked that joke. Daniel built a small fire as the sun dropped behind the western ridge. The temperature fell with it, that sharp mountain cold that reminded you winter never really left this high up. He sat on a folding chair he'd bought at a sporting goods store in Missoula watching flames dance over split pine. Valor lay beside the chair, his body a warm presence against Daniel's leg. The dog's eyes were half closed, but Daniel knew he was tracking every sound. The crack of settling wood, the distant hoot of an owl, the rustle of something small moving through the underbrush. Daniel pulled Maggie's sausage from the takeout container, bit into it. The flavor exploded across his tongue. Sage, black pepper, something else he couldn't identify. It was incredible. He looked down at Valor. "You have no idea what you're missing." The dog's eyes opened, fixed on the sausage, then shifted to Daniel's face. "Too late. You had your chance." Valor huffed, closed his eyes again. Daniel ate slowly, making each bite last. When he finished, he tossed the container in the trash bag hanging from the truck's side mirror, leaned back in the chair, stared up at the sky. The stars were coming out, millions of them, more than he'd seen in years. Living near cities, you forgot the sky could look like this, could remind you how small you were, how insignificant your mistakes. Except they weren't insignificant to the families of the two civilians. "Stop," he said aloud. Valor's head came up. "Not you, me." When the dog settled back down, but his body remained tense, ready. Daniel closed his eyes, forced himself to breathe. The therapist at the VA had called it grounding. Feel the chair beneath you. Hear the fire. Smell the smoke. Taste the lingering sausage. Touch the dog's warm fur. Present, not past. His hand found Valor's head. The dog's fur was coarse under his palm, warming to the touch. Valor leaned into the contact just slightly. Just enough. "We're going to be okay here," Daniel said quietly. "This is it. No more running." Valor shifted his weight, a subtle lean into Daniel's hand. Yes, the fire burned down to embers. Daniel didn't add more wood, just sat there in the growing dark, one hand on his dog, watching sparks drift up toward the infinite stars. Morning came cold and clear. Daniel woke to frost on the outside of the tent, and Valor's nose pressed against his face. "I'm up." The dog backed away. Saturday. Waited with the patience of the professionally trained. Daniel unzipped the sleeping bag. The cold hit him immediately. He pulled on pants, boots, a fleece layer, and the olive field jacket that had been with him through 3 deployments. The elbows were worn thin. The zipper stuck sometimes. He'd never replace it. Outside, his breath plumed in the air. The clearing was absolutely still. No wind. The trees standing like sentries around them. Daniel walked to the edge of the clearing and relieved himself watching the forest wake up. A raven called from somewhere deep in the pines. Another answered. Valor had already completed his morning patrol and was waiting by the truck. Yeah, breakfast." Daniel pulled the camp stove from the truck bed, set it up on the tailgate, lit it with a match. The blue flame hissed to life. He put a pot of water on to boil, then pulled out the instant coffee and 2 metal bowls. While the water heated, he filled 1 bowl with kibble for Valor, set it on the ground. The dog approached, sniffed it, ate with the same methodical efficiency he applied to everything. Each bite precise. Nothing wasted. Daniel made coffee in a metal cup. No sugar, no cream, just coffee. He wrapped both hands around it and let the heat seep into his fingers. "We should explore today," he said. "See what we've got here." Valor finished his kibble, looked up. His ears were forward, alert. "Yeah, a walk. You interested?" The dog's tail moved, definitely interested. They set out after Daniel finished his coffee and a protein bar that tasted like cardboard mixed with disappointment. He brought water, his knife a compass he didn't need but carried anyway, and the Glock in a hip holster under his jacket. Valor ranged ahead, but never more than 20 feet. He'd stop at natural choke points, fallen logs, dense thickets, creek crossings, and wait for Daniel to catch up before proceeding. It was a pattern they'd established years ago, a rhythm. The forest was thick, mostly pine with some aspen mixed in. The undergrowth wasn't too bad this time of year before summer growth exploded. They moved through it easily, heading generally east toward the rising sun. After 30 minutes, they hit a game trail. Deer tracks pressed into the damp earth. Recent, Valor's nose went down. He followed the scent for a few yards, then stopped and looked back at Daniel. Not hunting, just looking. The dog's posture relaxed slightly. He understood the distinction. They followed the trail for another 20 minutes. It wound through the trees, crossing a small creek twice, climbing gradually up the ridge. The forest opened up in places, offering glimpses of the valley below and the mountains beyond. Daniel stopped at one clearing, pulled out his water bottle, drank. The cold water burned his throat in the best way. This was good land, isolated, quiet, the kind of place where a man could think or not think, either way. Valor had moved to the edge of the clearing, investigating something. His tail was up, stiff, the posture Daniel recognized as interest. "What did you find?" The dog didn't move, just stood there, staring into the trees. Daniel walked over, looked where Valor was looking. At first he saw nothing unusual, just more forest, more trees, more shadows. Then his eyes adjusted. There was something off about the tree line. The spacing wasn't natural, and there was a shape, something geometric, something that didn't belong. "Stay close," Daniel said quietly. Valor pressed against his left leg. Combat position. They moved forward together, Daniel's hand unconsciously moving to the Glock. Old habits. They never really died. 50 feet into the trees, the shape resolved. Metal, rusted, covered in vines and moss, but unmistakably man-made. Daniel pushed aside a curtain of hanging vegetation and stopped. It was a rail car, a freight car. The old kind with sliding doors and faded paint. It sat at a slight angle, one end lower than the other, like it had been dropped from the sky and landed badly. Which made no sense. The nearest railroad tracks were 15 miles away down in the valley. Daniel had seen them on the drive-in. This was deep forest, steep terrain. There was no way to get a rail car up here, no tracks, no road wide enough, nothing. But here it was, Valor growled, low, deep, the sound of a professional warning. Daniel's hand stayed on the Glock. His eyes swept the area, looking for wires, tripwires, cameras, any sign this was a setup. Nothing, just the rail car, silent, waiting. He circled it slowly, Valor moving with him. The car was old, decades old. The paint had faded to almost nothing, but he could make out remnants of lettering. Caldwell Mining Corp. and numbers, 1985. One of the sliding doors was partially open, just enough to slip through. Daniel stopped at the opening, listened. Silence. He pulled out his phone, turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the gap into absolute darkness. "Valor, check." The dog moved forward, sniffed the opening. His body language changed. Tension, but not alarm, not danger, something else. Interest. Daniel took a breath, gripped the edge of the door, pulled. It screamed on rusted rails but moved, inch by inch, until the opening was wide enough for him to enter. The smell hit him first. Musty, damp, chemicals. And underneath it all, something else. Something wrong. He stepped inside. The phone's light revealed chaos. File boxes stacked against the walls. Some had collapsed, spilling yellowed papers across the floor. There was old equipment, monitoring devices. Clipboards with plastic sheets to protect the paper underneath. And dust. Decades of it. Daniel moved deeper into the car, the floor creaking under his boots. Valor followed nose to the ground, processing information Daniel couldn't access. On one wall, someone had pinned maps. Daniel brushed away cobwebs and dust. The map showed the area, Pine Ridge, the valley, and overlaid on the topography were zones marked in red. Contamination Zone A, Contamination Zone B, exclusion area. His pulse quickened. He moved to the file boxes, opened one. Inside were manila folders. He pulled one out. The label read Employee Health Records, 1985 to 1989. He opened it. Inside were medical reports, blood work, x-rays, notes in cramped handwriting. He scanned the pages, his training in battlefield medicine enough to understand the terminology. Arsenic poisoning, heavy metal exposure, respiratory failure, name after name, 12 in total. At the bottom of the file was a memo, typed on letterhead that read Caldwell Mining Corp., the date October 15th, 1985. The memo was brief. Subject employee incident resolution following discussion with legal counsel. All 12 individuals listed in attached documentation have been relocated per company protocol. Medical records to be sealed. No further investigation required. Incident considered closed. Signed R. Caldwell, CEO. Daniel stared at the page. Relocated. The corporate word for disappeared. "Jesus," he whispered. Valor whined. Soft, questioning. Daniel kept searching. Found more boxes, more files, soil contamination reports, water quality tests showing arsenic levels 50 times the legal limit, internal memos discussing containment and liability mitigation, and photographs. 12 men in mining gear, hard hats, dust-covered faces, smiling at the camera like they didn't know they were already dead. Daniel's hands were shaking. He forced them to steady. In the corner, partially hidden under a collapsed file box, he saw something else. A smaller container. waterproof, military grade. He pulled it out, opened it. Inside was a military watch, the kind issued to Navy personnel. He turned it over. Engraved on the back, JW, Isaiah 58:1, and underneath the watch, a letter, handwritten. The ink faded but readable. If you're reading this, you listen to your dog. Good. My name is Commander James Whitaker. I served in naval intelligence for 23 years. I came to Pine Ridge in 2018, investigating reports of environmental contamination tied to defense contractor activity. What I found was worse than expected. Caldwell Mining didn't just pollute this land, they poisoned 12 men who discovered what they were dumping, then made those men disappear. The company has connections everywhere. Military, government, law enforcement. I tried to go through proper channels. They killed me for it. Made it look like a car accident. This rail car contains the only physical evidence that survived their purge. Guard it. Trust no one in positions of authority, and trust your dog. They know things we don't. The letter was signed with initials. J.W. Daniel read it twice, then a third time. Commander James Whitaker. The name rang a bell, distant, something he'd heard in passing, a superior officer who died in a traffic accident 5 years ago. Routine, no investigation, except it wasn't routine. Daniel looked at Valor. The marsh sat perfectly still, watching him with those amber eyes. You knew, didn't you? You knew something was wrong here. Valor's tail swept once against the floor. Daniel carefully placed everything back in the waterproof container. Closed it, stood. His mind was racing. 12 men murdered, evidence buried, a Navy commander killed trying to expose it. And now he'd stumbled into the middle of it. The smart move was to walk away. Pack up, drive out of Montana and never look back. This wasn't his fight. He'd come here for peace, for quiet, for a place to forget. But as he looked around the rail car at the files and maps and photographs of men who'd been erased from existence, he felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Purpose. We need to get this out of here, he said to Valor. Somewhere safe. The dog stood. Ready. Daniel began gathering the most critical files, the medical records, the contamination reports, the photographs. He stuffed them into his jacket, filling every pocket. When he couldn't carry any more, he stepped toward the door and froze. Through the gap, he could see movement. Someone was out there. Daniel's hand went to the Glock. He pressed against the wall, listening. Footsteps, slow, measured, circling the rail car. Valor's hackles rose, a low growl building in his chest. Daniel put a hand on the dog's back. Silent command, stay quiet. The footsteps stopped. Right outside the door, a shadow blocked the light. Then a voice, male, cultured, calm. I know you're in there. Daniel said nothing. I'm not armed. I'm not a threat. I just want to talk. Still silence. My name is Richard Caldwell. I believe you've been reading about my family's company. Daniel's jaw clenched. Caldwell, the CEO who'd signed the memo. I'm going to step back, the voice continued. Give you space, but we should talk, for your own safety. The shadow moved away. The footsteps retreated 20 feet and stopped. Daniel waited 30 seconds, then moved to the door, peered out. A man stood in the clearing. Mid-50s, expensive outdoor clothing that looked like it came from an LL Bean catalog. Neatly trimmed beard, calm expression. He raised both hands showing they were empty. Mr. Reed, I presume, welcome to Pine Ridge. Daniel stepped out of the railcar, Valor at his side. The dog's body was coiled, ready to attack on command. How do you know my name? Caldwell smiled. It was warm, friendly, completely genuine. Small town. You bought the Henriksen property. People talk. I make it my business to know who's new in the community. That right. I'm a developer, community liaison. I help connect people to resources. He gestured at the railcar. I see you've discovered our little historical oddity. How'd it get here? Mining company experiment from the 80s. They were testing new transport methods for equipment. This was supposed to be moved by helicopter. It wasn't. Caldwell shrugged. Too expensive to remove, so they left it. It's been here ever since. The lie was smooth, practiced, almost believable. What's inside? Old files. Junk, nothing of value. Caldwell's smile didn't waver. Though I'm curious what brought you all the way out here. This is pretty far from your property. Walking my dog. Ah, he's beautiful. German Shepherd. Yes, Caldwell took a small step forward. Valor's growl intensified. Caldwell stopped. Protective. Trained to be. Military. Daniel didn't answer. Caldwell's eyes met Daniel's. Gray-blue, steady, unflinching. The eyes of a man who'd faced worse than corporate threats. Caldwell nodded slowly. I understand. Thank you for your service. He clasped his hands behind his back. Mr. Reed, I'm going to be direct with you. This land you bought. I'm prepared to offer you double what you paid. Cash, immediate transfer. Not interested. I haven't told you the amount. Don't need to. Not selling. Caldwell's smile tightened, just slightly. May I ask why you've been here one day? Haven't even seen the property in winter. It's brutal up here. Isolating. That's what I'm looking for. Isolation. Yes. Caldwell was quiet for a moment. Then he sighed. Mr. Reed, I'm going to level with you. That rail car, the things you found inside, they're part of a very old, very complicated situation. My grandfather made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But exposing them now won't bring anyone back. It will just destroy this town. How's that? Caldwell Mining is defunct, but Caldwell Development keeps Pine Ridge alive. We employ 200 people. We fund the school, the library, emergency services. If what's in that rail car becomes public, the lawsuits will bankrupt the company. All those people lose their jobs. The town dies. So you want me to forget what I saw? I want you to consider the consequences. Sometimes the truth does more harm than good. Sometimes silence is mercy. Daniel felt the weight of the files in his jacket, the photographs of 12 men who'd been silenced. And if I don't, Caldwell's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes, something cold. Then I hope you're as good at making friends as you are at finding abandoned rail cars, because you're going to need them. He turned and walked away, disappeared into the trees without looking back. Daniel stood there, hand on the Glock, until the footsteps faded completely. Then he looked down at Valor. We're in trouble, aren't we? The dog's ears were flat against his skull. His answer was clear. They walked back to camp in silence. Daniel's mind churned. Caldwell knew he'd been inside the rail car, knew what he'd found, and Caldwell had people, resources, influence. But Daniel had been in worse situations, had faced worse enemies. At least that's what he told himself. Back at camp, he pulled the files from his jacket, spread them on the tailgate, studied them in the fading afternoon light. 12 men, 12 families, 40 years of silence. Commander Whitaker had tried to expose this and died for it. The smart move was still to walk away. Daniel looked at Valor. The dog sat watching him, waiting for the decision. What do you think, boy? We pack up, find somewhere else. Valor's tail was motionless. His gaze held Daniel's, unblinking, ready for whatever came next. Yeah, that's what I thought. Daniel gathered the files, put them in the waterproof container, locked it in the truck's toolbox. Then he started building the fire for the night. They weren't leaving. Not yet. The Pine Ridge Public Library occupied a converted church at the end of Main Street. White clapboard siding, tall windows that let in morning light, a bronze plaque by the door that read Carnegie Foundation 1912. Daniel pushed through the door wearing his olive field jacket with the worn elbows, red and navy flannel shirt underneath green cargo pants, and scuffed brown boots. A bell chimed overhead. Inside, the smell of old books mixed with lemon furniture polish. Rows of shelves stretched toward the back, a few reading tables scattered between them. Empty except for one elderly woman doing a crossword puzzle. Behind the circulation desk sat a woman in her 30s. Glasses, dark hair pulled into a bun. She looked up from her computer screen. Help you. I'm looking for local history, newspaper archives, anything about mining operations from the 80s. The librarian's expression shifted, just slightly. Like she'd heard this question before and didn't like where it led. We have the Pine Ridge Gazette on microfiche, goes back to 1920. She stood. Follow me. She led him to a corner where an ancient microfiche reader sat on a table, pulled out a filing drawer. Her fingers walked through labeled sleeves. What year specifically? 1985. Her hand paused. May I ask what you're researching? Local interest. I just bought property here. The Henriksen place. Word travels fast. It does. She pulled out several sleeves, set them on the table. These cover 84 through 86. Use the reader. Don't remove anything. We close at 5. Thank you. She walked away. But Daniel felt her eyes on him from the circulation desk. He loaded the first film, turned the crank. Pages of newsprint flickered past. Local sports, town council meetings, obituaries. The mundane rhythm of small-town life. July 1985. A headline caught his eye. 12 miners leave town, seek opportunities elsewhere. He stopped cranking. Read. The article was brief. 12 employees of Caldwell Mining had resigned their positions to pursue opportunities in other states. Company spokesman Richard Caldwell Sr. expressed gratitude for their service and wished them well. No names listed, no quotes from the miners themselves, just a polite announcement that 12 men had vanished. Daniel kept searching. August, September, October. Nothing. No follow-up. No interviews with families. No missing persons reports. It was like they'd been erased. November brought a different story. Front page. Caldwell Mining ceases operations, shifts to development. The mine had closed. Environmental concerns cited. The company was pivoting to real estate development and community investment. Richard Caldwell Jr. would take over leadership. A new era for Pine Ridge. Daniel sat back, stared at the screen. The pattern was clear. Something happened in summer of 1985. 12 men discovered it. They were disappeared. The mine closed. The evidence was buried. And 40 years later, the Caldwell family still controlled the town. The bell over the door chimed. Daniel glanced up. A woman entered, early 40s, athletic build, cargo pants, and a fleece vest. She carried a leather messenger bag that looked well used. Her eyes swept the library with the practiced assessment of someone who noticed details. She walked to the circulation desk, spoke quietly with the librarian. The librarian gestured toward Daniel. The woman turned, made direct eye contact, started walking over. Daniel's hand instinctively moved toward his hip. Old reflexes. Daniel Reed. She stopped 6 feet away. Respectful distance. Who's asking? Dr. Emily Santos, environmental consultant. Can I sit? Daniel gestured to the chair across from him. She sat, set her bag on the table, folded her hands. I heard you found the rail car. Daniel said nothing. Small town, she continued. Richard Caldwell made a phone call this morning. His secretary mentioned it to her sister. Her sister told the postal clerk. The postal clerk told everyone. And you're interested because I've been researching cancer rates in Pine Ridge for 2 years, and I think what's in that rail car might explain why people here are dying. Daniel studied her face, looking for deception, agenda. He saw intensity, determination, and something else, anger. What kind of cancer rates? Emily pulled a laptop from her bag, opened it, turned the screen toward him. Lung cancer, 3 times the state average. Brain tumors, 5 times. Leukemia in children under 10, 7 times. She pulled up a map, and they all cluster here, within 5 miles of the old Caldwell mine. The map showed Pine Ridge and the surrounding valley. Red dots marked cancer cases. They formed a pattern, a zone, exactly matching the contamination areas on the maps in the rail car. How long has this been going on? Since the mid-'80s, but nobody tracks it. Nobody connects the dots. People just think Pine Ridge is unlucky. Or they know and stay quiet. Emily's jaw tightened. The Caldwell Foundation funds the Regional Medical Center, funds the research grants, funds everything. You don't bite the hand that feeds. But you're biting. My funding comes from outside, independent grants, which means I can ask questions Caldwell doesn't want asked. She closed the laptop, leaned forward. What did you find in that rail car? Daniel considered. 30 seconds of silence. Then he told her. The medical records, the contamination reports, the memo about relocating 12 employees, Commander Whitaker's letter. Emily listened without interrupting. When he finished, she sat back, closed her eyes. Jesus, 12 men, families. Most of them had wives, kids. Some of those kids still live here. She opened her eyes. This is proof, actual documentation. We could take this to the EPA, FBI, get a real investigation. Caldwell has influence. Then we go around him, media, state attorney general, someone with jurisdiction he can't control. Daniel pulled the microfiche sleeve from the reader, held it up. 40 years, nobody's exposed this. What makes you think it'll work, Al? Because nobody had the rail car. Whitaker tried, but he didn't get the evidence out before they killed him. Her voice was sharp, certain. We have a chance he didn't. You found it. I can interpret it. Together we might actually pull this off. Daniel was quiet. Outside, through the tall windows, he could see Valor sitting in the truck bed, patient, watchful. I came here to get away from fights. I know, I can see it. Emily's voice softened. But sometimes fights find us anyway. And when they do, we have to choose. Choose, the word hung in the air between them. Daniel thought about the photograph. 12 men in mining gear, smiling, alive. Let me think about it. Emily pulled a business card from her bag, set it on the table. My number, call anytime. She stood, picked up her bag, walked toward the door, then stopped, turned back. My father worked at Caldwell Mining, 1983 to 85. He died of lung cancer in 2005. Never smoked a day in his life. Her voice was steady, controlled. So yeah, this is personal for me. She left. The bell chimed. The library returned to silence. Daniel looked at the business card, then at the microfiche, then at the window where Valor sat waiting. He gathered the film sleeves, returned them to the filing drawer, walked to the circulation desk. The librarian looked up. Find what you needed, some of it. She nodded, hesitated, then spoke quietly. My husband was one of them. Disappeared in 85. I was pregnant with our daughter. He never came back, never called, nothing. Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. I'm sorry. Everyone said he ran off, started over somewhere else, left us. Her hands gripped the edge of the desk. I never believed it. Tom loved his family. He wouldn't just leave. What was his name? Thomas Warren. He was 28. Daniel pulled out his phone, opened the photos he'd taken of the medical records, scrolled through, found it. Thomas Warren, age 28, arsenic levels critical, respiratory distress. Recommendation, immediate medical intervention. Date August 12th, 1985. He turned the phone toward her. She stared at it. Her hand came up to her mouth. Oh my God. He didn't leave you. They killed him. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I knew. I always knew. Daniel gave her a moment, then quietly said, I'm going to prove it. And I'm going to make them answer for it. She nodded. Couldn't speak. Daniel walked out into the cold afternoon air. Valor jumped down from the truck bed, came to his side. Change of plans, boy. We're not running. The dog's tail swept once. Agreement. They drove back to camp. Daniel's mind was already working. Planning. He'd need to document everything. Make copies. Establish a chain of custody. Get the evidence to someone who couldn't be bought or threatened. But first he needed to secure the rail car. Back at camp, he pulled out his satellite phone. The kind of phone that didn't rely on local cell towers, that couldn't be intercepted or traced easily. He dialed a number he hadn't called in 3 years. It rang 4 times. Then a voice, gruff, familiar. This is Mitchell. Chief, it's Reed. Silence. Then, Danny Jesus Christ's son. Where the hell have you been, Master Chief Kyle Mitchell? Daniel's commanding officer for 6 years. The man who'd written his discharge papers and told him to take care of himself. Montana, bought some land, needed quiet. Quiet's good, you get it. For about 48 hours. Mitchell sighed. Why am I not surprised? What do you need? Daniel explained. The rail car, the files, Commander Whitaker, Caldwell. When he finished, Mitchell was quiet for a long time. Whitaker. I remember when he died. We all thought it was just bad luck. Drunk driver ran him off the road. With Ollie wasn't luck. No, doesn't sound like it. Keys clicking in the background. Mitchell typing. I'm pulling up what I can on Caldwell. Give me a minute. Daniel waited. Watched Valor patrol the perimeter. The dog moved with purpose. Checking. Assessing. Always professional. Okay, Mitchell said. Caldwell Development. Revenue $200 million annually. Owns half of Pine Ridge. Political donations across the board. Both parties. Smart. More typing. Richard Caldwell Jr. Clean record. Philanthropist. Community leader. Model citizen. On paper. They always are. Mitchell paused. Danny, if you go after this guy, it won't be clean. He's got connections, resources. And you're one man with a dog. I've worked with less. In a war zone with rules of engagement and backup 30 minutes out. This is different. This is civilian. You can't just shoot your way through. I know. Do you? Because I've seen what happens when operators try to go back to normal life and bring their training with them. It doesn't end well. Daniel was quiet. Mitchell's voice softened. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying be smart. Build a case. Get allies. Don't go lone wolf. I've got someone, environmental researcher. She has cancer data. Good, that's good. Anyone else? Working on it. Work faster, and Danny, watch your 6. Men like Caldwell don't play fair. Well, copy that, Chief. Stay in touch, and for God's sake, don't do anything stupid. No promises. Mitchell laughed. There's the seal I remember. Semper Fi, son. Wrong branch, Chief. Whatever, don't get dead. The line went dead. Daniel pocketed the phone, looked at Valor. We need help. The dog tilted his head, listening, and I know just where to look. The next morning, Daniel drove back into town, parked outside Maggie's diner. The breakfast rush was in full swing. Through the window, he could see every booth filled, steam rising from coffee cups, the comfortable chaos of a place people actually wanted to be. He left Valor in the truck. Stay, I'll bring you something. Valor's expression suggested skepticism. Inside, Maggie was moving between tables with a coffee pot in each hand. She spotted Daniel, nodded toward the counter. Grab a seat, hon. Be right with you. Daniel sat, watched the room in the mirror behind the counter. Force of habit. Know the exits, track the people. Notice who's paying attention. Most weren't. They were eating, talking, living their lives. But one man was watching. Older, maybe 70, flannel shirt and work boots, sitting alone in a corner booth. His eyes met Daniel's in the mirror, held for a second, then looked away. Maggie appeared with coffee. Morning. Morning. Heard you've been making the rounds. Library, asking questions. Word really does travel. Speed of light. She topped off his cup. What can I get you? Whatever's good. Everything's good, but the biscuits and gravy will change your life. Sold. She walked away, came back 5 minutes later with a plate that could feed 3 people. Biscuits the size of softballs smothered in sausage gravy. Scrambled eggs, hash browns, bacon. Daniel stared at it. This is breakfast. This is how we keep people from leaving. Eat. He ate. She was right. The biscuits were transcendent. Halfway through, the older man from the corner booth stood. Walked over. Stopped next to Daniel's stool. Mind if I sit? Daniel gestured to the empty stool beside him. The man sat. Up close, his face was weathered. Deep lines around the eyes. Hands that showed a lifetime of work. Name's Frank Kowalski. Used to work at Caldwell Mining. Daniel set down his fork. What years? 78 to 84. Left before the trouble. The 12 men? Frank nodded slowly. Knew most of them. Good men. Hard workers. They found something in the lower tunnels. Something Caldwell was dumping. Asked questions. He stared at his coffee. Then they were gone. What did they find? Barrels. Hundreds of them. Industrial waste from defense contracts. Caldwell had a deal with the government. Dispose of hazardous materials. Supposed to do it proper. Instead, he just buried it in played-out mine shafts. You saw this? No, but Tom Warren did. He was my shift supervisor. Came to me one night. Said they'd found drums leaking into the groundwater. Said he was going to report it. Frank's jaw tightened. I told him not to. Told him Caldwell would bury him. He didn't listen. And then, 2 weeks later, he was gone, all 12 of them. Company said they quit, found better work in Wyoming. But their trucks were still here. Their houses still had their stuff. They didn't quit. They were disappeared. Maggie was standing at the end of the counter, listening. Her face was pale. Daniel spoke carefully. Did anyone go to the authorities? Sheriff was on Caldwell's payroll. State police said it was a local matter. FBI and said there was no federal crime. Frank turned to face him. You can't fight money and power with nothing but the truth. The truth loses. Not always. You're that SEAL bought the Henriksen place. Yes. Then you know about fighting, but this ain't a war zone. This is home, and Caldwell owns home. Daniel met his eyes. What if I told you I found proof documentation? Medical records, contamination reports. Frank's breath caught. You found the rail car? Yes. Jesus. Frank looked around, lowered his voice. Whitaker said it was out there. Said he'd hidden evidence before they got to him, but nobody could find it. You knew Whitaker. He came through in 2018. Navy investigator, asked the same questions you're asking. We talked. I told him what I knew. 3 months later, he was dead. Car accident on Highway 90. Single vehicle. Went off a cliff. Frank's hands gripped the counter edge. Wasn't no accident. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then I'm going to finish what Whitaker started. They'll kill you. They can try. Frank studied him. Whatever he saw seemed to satisfy him. You'll need help. People willing to talk on record. You willing? I'm 73 years old, got cancer. 6 months, maybe a year. Caldwell already took my health. He doesn't get to keep his secrets too. Frank pulled out a worn notebook, wrote something, tore out the page. These are the families, the ones who lost somebody. Some of them are still here, still waiting for answers. Daniel took the list. 12 names, 12 families, 40 years of grief. Thank you. Frank stood, put a hand on Daniel's shoulder. Don't thank me yet. Just don't get dead before you finish this. He walked out. The bell chimed. Maggie came over, refilled Daniel's coffee. Her hands were shaking. Tom was my husband. I know, the librarian told me. She set down the coffee pot. You really going to do this, go after Caldwell? Yes. Why you don't know us? This isn't your town. Daniel thought about that, about why a man who came here for peace would choose war instead. Because 12 men deserve better, and because someone has to. Maggie's eyes filled. She nodded, walked back to the kitchen. Daniel finished his breakfast, left cash on the counter, walked out. Valor was waiting. Daniel opened the door, set a takeout container on the passenger seat. From Maggie, real bacon this time. Valor sniffed it, considered, then began eating with approval. Daniel started the truck, pulled out his phone, called Emily Santos. She answered on the first ring. Reed, I'm in. Let's build the case. Good, come to my office. I've got something you need to see. Emily's office was above the hardware store. One room, cluttered with file boxes and equipment. A wall of corkboard covered in maps and photographs and data charts connected by red string. Daniel stood in the doorway. You really went all in on this. 2 years of my life, Emily gestured to a chair. Sit, I'll show you what we're dealing with. She pulled up a presentation on her laptop, turned the screen toward him. This is soil contamination mapped over 40 years. Watch. The animation began, 1985. A red zone appeared around the old mine. Small, contained. Then it grew, year by year, spreading, following the groundwater, the creeks, the natural drainage. By 2025, the red zone covered 500 acres, including residential areas, schools, parks. Arsenic, lead, cadmium, mercury, from Caldwell's dumping. Emily changed slides. And here's the health impact. Cancer diagnoses plotted over time. The graph climbed steadily from 1985 to present. 73 confirmed deaths directly attributable to exposure, but that's just diagnosed cases. Probably twice that in reality. Daniel stared at the numbers. 73 lives, plus the original 12. 85 people dead because one man wanted to save money. We need to get this to the EPA. Already tried last year. They sent an inspector. He spent 3 hours here, wrote a report saying levels were within acceptable limits. Emily pulled up a PDF. See the signature? Bottom of the report reviewed and approved by R. Caldwell, community liaison. He reviewed his own inspection. Welcome to small-town corruption. The EPA doesn't have resources to fight it. They rely on local cooperation. And Caldwell is very cooperative. Daniel stood, walked to the window. Outside Main Street looked peaceful, normal. People going about their lives not knowing they were being poisoned. What about media investigative journalists? Tried. They come, they interview, then their editors kill the story. Caldwell advertises in every newspaper within 200 miles. Sponsors every local TV station. Nobody wants to lose that revenue. So we're stuck. Not stuck, just playing a different game. Emily came to stand beside him. We need someone Caldwell can't control. Federal jurisdiction, criminal charges, something that bypasses local power. Daniel thought, then pulled out his phone, found the contact. Sarah Chen, the journalist who'd been waiting to hear from Commander Whitaker. He showed Emily the name from Whitaker's letter. She's our way out. Emily's eyes widened. Sarah Chen, she broke the Pentagon Papers sequel story, the defense contractor fraud case. Whitaker trusted her. Then we trust her. Daniel was about to dial when his phone buzzed. Unknown number, local area code. He answered. Reed? A young voice, male, panicked. Mr. Reed, this is Jake Warren, from the library. My mom works there. What's wrong? There's a kid missing, Tyler Morrison, 9 years old, last seen near the old mine. Sheriff won't search, says it's too dangerous. But Tyler's dad works for Caldwell, and my mom says the area's poisoned and nobody's doing anything. And slow down. Where exactly was he last seen? Old Mining Road, near the warning signs. He was riding his bike. Daniel checked his watch. How long ago? 3 hours. 3 hours. In cold weather. Near contaminated ground. Emily was watching him. She'd heard enough. I'm going, Daniel said into the phone. Sheriff said, I don't care what the sheriff said. Send me the location. Thank you so much. The line went dead. A text arrived with GPS coordinates. Daniel looked at Emily. I have to go. I know, I'm coming with you. It could be dangerous, unstable ground, contamination. I've been mapping that area for 2 years. You need me. She was right. Let's go. They took Daniel's truck. Valor rode in the back, alert and focused. Emily navigated from the passenger seat, pulling up her contamination maps on a tablet. Tyler's last known position is here. She pointed to the screen. Edge of Zone A, high arsenic concentration. If he wandered deeper, she didn't finish. Didn't need to. Daniel pushed the truck faster. The road climbed into the hills. Paved surface gave way to gravel, then dirt, then barely a trail. They passed warning signs. Danger. No trespassing. Unstable ground. There, Emily pointed. A small bike. Red. Lying on its side next to a fence. Daniel stopped the truck. They got out. Valor jumped down. Immediately went to the bike. Sniffed. Caught a scent. Can he track? Emily asked. Better than anyone. Daniel knelt beside the dog, held out a small jacket that had been tied to the bike's handlebars. Valor, track. The dog took the scent. His entire body changed. Purpose, mission. He put his nose to the ground, started moving. Daniel and Emily followed. Through scrub brush, over rocky terrain, the ground was unstable. Old mine shafts had collapsed decades ago, leaving depressions and sinkholes. Valor moved with confidence, following something only he could smell. 20 minutes in, they heard it. A voice. Weak. Scared. Help. Someone help. Valor's pace increased. Daniel and Emily ran to keep up. They found him in a depression. Tyler Morrison, 9 years old. Dirty face, tear tracks. He'd fallen into an old air shaft. Not deep, maybe 8 feet, but the walls were crumbling. Any attempt to climb out made more dirt fall. Tyler, Daniel called down. The boy looked up. Who are you? I am. Someone who's going to get you out. Stay still. Daniel assessed. The shaft wasn't stable. Climbing down would risk collapse. He needed rope. Emily the truck, climbing rope, harness, back corner of the bed. She ran. Daniel lay flat at the edge. Made eye contact with Tyler. You hurt? My ankle, I think it's broken. Okay, we're going to get you out. Just stay calm. Tyler nodded, trying to be brave. Valor appeared at the edge, looked down at the boy, then at Daniel. I know, buddy, we're working on it. Emily returned, breathing hard, carrying rope and a harness. Daniel rigged it quickly, years of training making his hands sure. He put on the harness, tied off to the truck, started lowering himself into the shaft. The walls crumbled under his weight. Dirt showered down. Careful, Emily called. Daniel reached Tyler, knelt beside him. The boy's ankle was swollen, definitely broken, but he was alive, alert, responsive. I'm going to put you in this harness. It might hurt your ankle. Can you handle that? I think so. Good man. Daniel secured the harness around Tyler. Triple-checked every connection, then called up Emily Pull. The rope went taut. Tyler rose, inch by inch. Daniel guided him, keeping him away from the crumbling walls, protecting the injured ankle. Tyler reached the top. Emily pulled him out, safe. Valor was there immediately, sniffing, checking, making sure the boy was okay. Tyler reached out, touched the dog's head. Good dog. Valor's tail swept once. Daniel climbed out, removed his harness, knelt beside Tyler. Let me see that ankle. He examined it carefully. Definitely broken, but clean. No compound fracture. We need to get you to a hospital. My dad, he works for Mr. Caldwell. He told me this area was safe, that the signs were just to scare people. Daniel and Emily exchanged glances. Your dad was wrong, Daniel said quietly. This place isn't safe, but you are now. They carried Tyler to the truck, made him comfortable in the back seat with Emily. Valor jumped in beside him, protective. Daniel drove, fast but controlled. 20 minutes to Pine Ridge Medical Center. The emergency room staff took Tyler immediately. His parents arrived 10 minutes later. The mother sobbing, the father pale and silent. The father was a man in his 30s, work clothes, Caldwell Development logo on his jacket. He approached Daniel. You found him? Yes. The sheriff said it was too dangerous, that we should wait. The sheriff was wrong. The man's jaw tightened. Mr. Caldwell told me that area was clean, that the contamination was all cleaned up. He sent my boy into poison. Yes. Why would he do that? Because telling the truth would cost him money. The man stood there, processing. Then he extended his hand. Jim Morrison, I owe you my son's life. Daniel shook it. You don't owe me anything, but you might want to start asking Caldwell harder questions. Jim nodded slowly. I will. I promise you I will. As they left the hospital, Emily turned to Daniel. That's two families now. Frank, the Warrens, the Morrisons. People are starting to see the truth. Good, we'll need them. They walked to the truck. Valor was waiting in the bed, calm, professional. Daniel's phone buzzed, text from unknown number. I warned you. Now you've made this personal. Leave Pine Ridge, tonight, or everyone you've talked to will suffer. No signature? Didn't need one. Daniel showed Emily. Her face went hard. He's threatening us. Yes. What do we do? Daniel looked at Valor. The dog sat perfectly still, watching him, waiting for the decision. He thought about the easy path. Pack up, drive away, find peace somewhere else. Then he thought about 12 men in a photograph, about Tom Warren who never came home, about Tyler Morrison in that shaft, about 73 cancer deaths, about Commander Whitaker's letter. Trust your dog. Daniel looked at Valor. What do you think, boy, we leave? Valor's ears were forward, alert, his body language clear. We stay. Daniel turned to Emily. We're not leaving. Good, because I wasn't asking. They drove back to camp. The sun was setting, painting the mountains in shades of red and gold. At the clearing, Daniel started unpacking, setting up for a longer stay. Emily helped. When the tent was squared away and the fire was built, Daniel sat on his folding chair, Valor beside him. Emily sat across the fire. Tomorrow we call Sarah Chen. Tomorrow we call everyone. Chen, the EPA FBI State Attorney General. We flood the zone. Caldwell will fight. Let him. Emily smiled. You know, when I started this, I thought I was alone. Now, she gestured at the camp, at Daniel, at Valor. Now I have a SEAL and a war dog. Things are looking up. Don't forget a grumpy librarian and a dying miner. Them too. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire, planning tomorrow's war. Daniel pulled out the takeout container Maggie had given him that morning. Forgot about this, her famous pot roast. He opened it. The smell was incredible. Rich, savory, perfect. Valor appeared immediately, nose twitching, interested. Daniel held out a piece. This meet your standards. Valor sniffed it carefully, considered, his head tilted at a precise 15-degree angle. The universal dog expression for, I suppose this is acceptable. He took the meat delicately, chewed, swallowed, then sat. One thump of the tail, approved, barely. Daniel laughed. High praise from you. Emily watched from across the fire. Does he judge all your food? Everything. I failed scrambled eggs last week. How do you fail scrambled eggs? According to Valor, insufficient cheese. The dog's ears rotated forward. Possibly agreement. Emily shook her head, smiling. You two are something else. Daniel's hand rested on Valor's head. The dog leaned into the touch. We're really doing this, Daniel said quietly. Valor shifted his weight, a subtle lean into Daniel's hand. Yes, the stars came out. 1,000,000 points of light above the Montana wilderness. Daniel looked up at them, thought about all the times he'd navigated by those stars, in deserts, in mountains, in hostile territory, always moving, always running toward the next mission or away from the last one. But now, for the first time in 3 years, he wasn't running. He was standing still, and it felt right. Dawn came with the smell of smoke, not campfire smoke, something else, something wrong. Daniel woke instantly, training overriding sleep. He was out of the tent in seconds, boots half-laced, Glock in hand. The eastern sky glowed orange, too bright, too early. Valor stood at the edge of the clearing, hackles raised, staring toward the valley. Emily emerged from her own tent, pulling on a jacket. Is that fire? Daniel was already moving to the truck. Big one. He grabbed binoculars from the glove box, focused on the glow. The fire was miles away, down in the valley, but it was spreading, fast, driven by wind that had picked up overnight. He could see the smoke column, now black and thick, rising into the pre-dawn sky. His phone buzzed. Text from a number he recognized. Frank Kowalski. Wildfire started near Old Mine. Evacuation order for Pine Ridge. Something's wrong. Fire started in 3 places at once. Daniel's jaw tightened. 3 ignition points. That wasn't nature. Emily read over his shoulder. Caldwell. Probably. He's burning evidence. Or creating chaos. Daniel lowered the binoculars. Either way, people are in danger. What do we do? Daniel looked at the camp, at the evidence they'd gathered, at the fragile coalition they'd built. Then he looked at Valor. The dog's eyes were steady, calm, waiting for orders. We help evacuate. Then we make sure the rail car doesn't burn. The rail car's 15 miles from the fire. For now, they broke camp in 10 minutes. Essential gear only. The evidence went into waterproof containers sealed and buried in a cache Daniel marked with GPS coordinates. If something happened to them, Emily had instructions to send the coordinates to Sarah Chen. Then they drove toward Pine Ridge. The town was chaos. People loading trucks, sheriff's deputies directing traffic, smoke visible on the southern horizon closer than it had been 30 minutes ago. Daniel parked outside the community center. A makeshift command post had been set up. Maps on folding tables, radios crackling. Fire Chief Martinez coordinating with State Forestry. Daniel approached. "What do you need?" Martinez looked up, recognized him. "You're the SEAL." "Yes." "Can you drive?" "Yes." "Take this route." Martinez marked a map with highlighter. "Elderly residents can't drive themselves. Get them to the shelter in Whitefish, 2 hours north." "Copy." Daniel took the list. 12 addresses. He started to turn away, then stopped. "Chief, this fire. 3 ignition points." Martinez's expression darkened. "Yeah, arson investigation will happen after. Right now, we just save lives." "Understood." Daniel and Emily spent the next 6 hours driving, loading elderly residents into the truck, making runs to Whitefish, coming back for more. Valor rode with them, his presence calming frightened people. A therapy animal who'd never been trained for it, but understood what was needed. On the 4th run, they passed Richard Caldwell. He stood outside his office building, watching workers load files into vehicles. Expensive SUVs, corporate assets being preserved while the town evacuated. Their eyes met through the truck window. Caldwell in his expensive outdoor gear, Daniel in his worn field jacket and cargo pants. The contrast was stark. Money versus purpose. Caldwell smiled, raised one hand in a small wave. Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Don't," Emily said quietly. "Not now." She was right. But it took everything he had to keep driving. By early afternoon, the southern quarter of Pine Ridge was evacuated. The fire had jumped the first containment line, was moving faster than the models predicted. Daniel stood at the command post studying the fire maps. The wind was pushing it northeast, directly toward the forest where the rail car sat. Martinez saw him looking. "Yeah, whole valley might go. Forest Service says the fuel load is at critical levels. Drought conditions. It's a tinderbox." "How long until it reaches the old mining area?" "Current rate 6 hours, maybe 8 if the wind shifts." Daniel pulled out his phone, called Emily. She'd stayed in Whitefish with the last group of evacuees. The fire's heading for the rail car. Can you move it?" "It's a 10-ton freight car with no wheels." "Right. Stupid question." He heard her thinking. "The evidence? We documented everything. Photos, video, sample collection, yeah. Then let it burn. We have what we need." Daniel looked at the map, at the red line advancing across it, at the place where Commander Whitaker had hidden the truth for 5 years. It's not about the evidence, it's about the proof. Physical documentation, chain of custody. Defense attorneys will tear apart digital files. But if we have the original documents intact, secured as evidence, you want to save the rail car. "I want to try away." Emily was quiet for a moment. "How about fire break? Cut a line around it. Clear the fuel. If the fire reaches it and there's nothing to burn, it might survive." "That's insane. You don't have time. You don't have equipment." "I have a chainsaw, a Pulaski, and I have Valor." "Danny, I know, but I have to try." Another pause, then, "Okay, but I'm coming back. You don't do this alone. The evacuees are settled. I'm already in the truck. 40 minutes out." The line went dead. Daniel looked at Valor, ready to work. The dog stood, tail up, game face on. The forest around the rail car was dense. 40 years of growth. Deadfall and undergrowth and pine needles 6 inches deep. Perfect fuel for a crown fire. Daniel parked a safe distance away, grabbed his gear, chainsaw, Pulaski, work gloves, water. He started cutting, dropping small trees, clearing brush, creating a perimeter around the rail car, 50 feet in every direction. It was brutal work. The saw was heavy. The trees fought back. His shoulders screamed. Sweat poured despite the cold air. Valor worked too, dragging branches, moving debris, understanding the mission even if the specifics made no sense to him. 2 hours and Emily arrived. She brought more tools, a second chainsaw, rakes, fire shelter blankets. They didn't waste time talking, just worked. Cut, clear, drag, stack. The pile of cleared vegetation grew. They hauled it 200 feet away, downwind, away from the railcar. By late afternoon, they'd cleared a rough circle. Not perfect, but better than nothing. Daniel's phone buzzed. Text from Martinez. Fire jumped Highway 90, moving fast. Recommend you evacuate your position. He showed Emily. She wiped her forehead. We did what we could. Not enough. It's never enough, but it's what we have. Daniel looked at the rail car, at the cleared ground around it, at the forest beyond where smoke was visible now, close. Too close. One more thing. He grabbed the fire shelter blankets, climbed onto the rail car roof, started covering it, tucking the reflective material into every gap, sealing it. Emily helped. They worked fast, professional, like a pit crew. When the rail car was wrapped, Daniel climbed down, stepped back. It looked absurd. A giant foil-wrapped package sitting in the forest. Think it'll work? Emily asked. No idea. Me either. They loaded the tools, started walking back to the truck. That's when Valor stopped. The dog froze mid-step, head up, ears forward, every muscle tense. Daniel's hand went to his hip. What is it, boy? Valor growled. Low, dangerous. Then Daniel heard it. An engine coming closer. Not fire equipment, something else. A black SUV emerged from the trees, stopped 30 feet away. The door opened. Richard Caldwell stepped out. He was alone. No security, no backup. Just him in expensive outdoor gear that had never seen real work. He smiled. Mr. Reed, Dr. Santos, I thought you'd be evacuated by now. Daniel said nothing. This is dangerous, you know. The fire. It's unpredictable. People die in wildfires. Tragic accidents. No one to blame. Is that a threat? Emily's voice was sharp. It's a fact. Caldwell gestured at the smoke. Tried to warn you. Tried to make this easy, but you wouldn't listen. You started this fire, Daniel said quietly. Me, I'm just a developer watching a tragic natural disaster. He smiled. Though between us, I knew you'd come back for this railcar. Sentimental. Predictable. The fire was supposed to cut you off. Trap you here. Another tragic victim. His smile widened. But you brought help. Complicated things. Still accidents happen in wildfires. And the evidence in the rail car, Caldwell's smile didn't waver. What evidence? I see trees, brush, fuel for a fire. Nothing else. He was admitting it, everything, because he thought they'd never prove it. Thought the fire would erase it all. Daniel took a step forward. Valor moved with him. Caldwell's smile faltered. I'd be careful with that dog, Mr. Reed. Animal attacks are also tragic. He only attacks on command. Good. Then we can talk like civilized people. Caldwell pulled an envelope from his jacket. This is a check, $500,000. Take it. Leave Montana. Never come back. Everyone wins. Except the people you poisoned. They were going to die anyway. Cancer, old age, accidents. Everyone dies, Mr. Reed. The question is whether their deaths mean something or nothing. I'm offering you the chance to make yours comfortable. Daniel looked at the envelope, at Caldwell's confident face, at the smoke growing thicker behind him. Then he looked at Valor. The dog was staring at Caldwell with an intensity Daniel had only seen in combat. The look a working dog gives a target before engagement. No deal, Daniel said. Caldwell's smile disappeared. Then you're a fool, and fools don't survive. He turned toward his SUV. Valor lunged. Not far, just 2 feet, putting himself between Daniel and Caldwell. A barrier, a warning. The growl that came from his chest was pure menace. Caldwell stumbled backward. Control your animal. He is controlled. He's doing exactly what he's trained to do, protecting me from threats. I'm not. You started a fire to kill evidence and endanger lives. You threatened me. You tried to bribe me. That's a threat. Daniel's voice was ice. Now get in your vehicle, drive away, and pray the fire department saves your properties, because I won't. Caldwell's face flushed red. You have no idea what you're starting. I have every idea. Now go. For a moment, Caldwell looked like he might argue. Then he saw Daniel's gray-blue eyes, steady, unflinching, saw Valor's posture, saw Emily recording the whole conversation on her phone. He got in the SUV, slammed the door, drove away fast enough to kick up dirt. When he was gone, Emily lowered her phone. Got all of it. Send it to Sarah Chen, now. She pulled out her laptop, established a satellite connection, uploaded the video with a message full story attached. Caldwell confession on tape. Fire is cover-up. Time sensitive? Send. Done. Daniel nodded, looked at the approaching smoke. Now we run. They made it back to the truck with minutes to spare. The fire was visible now, a wall of orange consuming the forest, moving like something alive and hungry. Daniel drove fast, Valor in the back seat, Emily beside him, both watching the rearview mirror where flames chased them. They reached the highway, turned north, away from Pine Ridge, towards safety. 5 miles out, Daniel pulled over. They got out, stood on the shoulder. Behind them, the valley was burning. Emily wiped her eyes. All those years of work, the maps, the data, the samples. You backed it up. Most of it. Then it's not lost. They watched in silence. There was nothing else to do. Daniel's phone rang. Sarah Chen. Mr. Reed. Speaking. I got your video and Dr. Santos's files. I've been trying to reach Commander Whitaker for 5 years. When he died, I thought the story died with him. It didn't. No, it didn't. He heard typing. I'm bringing a team. Camera crew, investigators. We'll be there in 8 hours. Can you meet us? Where? Somewhere safe. Somewhere Caldwell can't reach. Daniel thought. Whitefish. The evacuation shelter. Lots of witnesses. Lots of people who want to talk. Perfect. See you tonight. The line went dead. Emily looked at him. This is really happening. Yes. We're going to win. Maybe. Valor barked, once, sharp. Daniel turned, looked at the dog. Valor wasn't looking at the fire. He was looking back down the highway, toward Pine Ridge. His body language had changed. Not alarm, not warning, determination. Daniel followed his gaze, saw nothing, just empty road. What is it, boy? Valor barked again. Started walking back toward the truck, stopped, looked at Daniel. The message was clear. We're not done. The fire's still burning, Emily said. We can't go back. But Valor's posture didn't change. He stood there, waiting, insisting. Daniel pulled out his phone, checked the fire maps. The wind had shifted. The main fire was being pushed east, away from Pine Ridge, toward the rail car. But there was a secondary front, smaller, pushing west, toward residential areas that hadn't been evacuated. His phone buzzed. Text from Martinez. Need help. Spot fires threatening north end of town. Not enough personnel. Anyone with firefighting experience, please respond. Daniel looked at Valor. The dog's gaze held his, unblinking, ready for whatever came next. You knew, Daniel said quietly. Valor's tail swept once. Daniel turned to Emily. I have to go back. I know. You should stay here. It's safer. I'm a scientist, not a coward. Let's go. The north end of Pine Ridge was chaos. Spot fires had jumped the containment lines. Small houses were burning, fire crews spread too thin, residents with garden hoses fighting flames with inadequate tools. Daniel pulled up to the command post. Martinez saw him. Relief flooded his face. Thank God. I need bodies on the line. Can you handle a hose? Yes. East End, Henderson Street. 3 houses at risk. Protect the structures. Don't be a hero. Daniel drove to Henderson Street. Old houses, wood siding, 50 feet of dry grass between them and the approaching flames. He grabbed the fire hose connected to a hydrant. Emily took the second hose. They started spraying, soaking the houses, creating wet barriers. Valor worked too. He ran back and forth, warning them when embers landed, indicating hot spots they couldn't see through the smoke. For 3 hours they fought. The fire pushed closer, heat searing, smoke choking. Daniel's lungs burned. His eyes watered, but he kept the hose moving, kept the water flowing. A wall of flame reached the first house, touched the wet siding, and died. The water had worked. The barrier held. The fire moved around them, found easier fuel elsewhere. Then it happened. A crack like a gunshot. A support beam on the nearest house gave way. Daniel looked up just in time to see it falling, directly toward him. No time to move, no time to think. 65 pounds of German Shepherd hit him from the side. Valor slammed into Daniel's ribs, driving him backward. They both went down hard. The beam crashed where Daniel had been standing. Sparks exploded. Embers rained down. One ember landed on Valor's back, burned through fur to skin. The dog yelped. Once sharp, pained, then went silent. Discipline overriding pain. Daniel scrambled up. Valor, the dog, was standing, favoring his left rear leg, a burn mark visible on his flank. But his eyes were clear, focused, still working. Stand down. Now. Daniel's voice cracked. Valor sat, finally obeying. Daniel knelt beside him, examined the burn. 2nd degree, painful but not critical. The legs seemed okay, bruised from the tackle but functional. You stupid brave. Daniel couldn't finish. His hands were shaking. Valor leaned into him, a silent reassurance. I'm okay, we keep going. No, not this time. Daniel looked at Emily. Get him to the truck. Keep him there. What about, I finish this. He's done enough. Emily nodded, helped guide Valor towards safety. The dog went reluctantly, looking back every few steps. Daniel returned to the hose alone, but now his hands were steady, his purpose crystal clear. Valor had saved his life, again. Time to finish this fight. For another hour, Daniel worked. The fire finally began to retreat. The wind shifted. Rain clouds gathered on the horizon. By evening, the threat had passed. The three houses stood, damaged but standing. Martinez appeared out of the smoke. Good work. Fall back. Let the professionals handle the rest. Daniel lowered the hose. His hands were cramped, blistered, his clothes soaked and ash-covered. Emily looked worse, face black with soot, coughing, but alive. Valor sat beside the truck, panting, exhausted, a small bandage visible on his flank, but still alert. Come on, Daniel said. Let's get cleaned up. They walked back to the truck. As they did, doors opened. The residents they'd saved, emerging from their houses. An elderly woman approached. Her house had been the closest to the flames. You saved my home. Daniel shook his head. Just doing what needed doing. No, you came back. When you could have run, you came back. She looked at the other residents gathering. We all saw. A man in his 40s stepped forward. I work for Caldwell. Worked. Past tense. After what I saw today, I'm done. Whatever you need, testimony, documents, anything. I'm in. Others nodded, murmured agreement. Frank Kowalski was there too, leaning on a cane. Told you, you make friends by showing up. Daniel looked at the group, 15 people, maybe 20, all watching him. There's a journalist coming, he said, Sarah Chen. She's going to tell the story of what Caldwell did, what he's still doing. If you're willing to talk to her, to go on record, we can make this right. When, the elderly woman asked. Tonight, evacuation shelter in Whitefish. We'll be there. They dispersed, heading to their vehicles, preparing for the drive north. Emily touched Daniel's arm. You did it. Built an army. We did it. No, they're following you. She gestured at Valor. Both of you, the SEAL and his dog who ran into fire to save strangers. That's a story people believe in. Daniel looked down at Valor. The dog was watching him, waiting. Ready for one more drive, boy. Valor stood, shook off the ash. Ready. The Whitefish evacuation shelter was a high school gymnasium. Cots lined the walls. Red Cross volunteers serving hot food. Families clustered together. Scared. Tired. Safe. Sarah Chen arrived at 9 p.m. with a camera crew and 2 investigators. She was younger than Daniel expected. 40, sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor. She shook his hand. Mr. Reed, Dr. Santos, thank you for waiting. Thank you for coming. When I got your video, I made calls. FBI, EPA, State Attorney General. They're all sending people. She looked around the shelter. These are the witnesses. Some of them. More are coming. Over the next hour they came. Frank Kowalski, Jim Morrison and his wife, the librarian, the residents from Henderson Street, workers from Caldwell Development who'd quit, families who'd lost loved ones to cancer. 30 people total. Sarah set up in a corner, started interviewing one by one. Her investigators examined the documents Daniel and Emily had saved, photographed everything, established chain of custody. By midnight, they had 12 hours of testimony, hundreds of pages of evidence, soil samples, medical records, financial documents showing Caldwell's cover-up. Sarah pulled Daniel aside. This is Pulitzer material, but it's also dangerous. Caldwell has resources, lawyers, political connections. I know. The story goes live tomorrow morning. New York Times, front page. Once that happens, there's no putting the genie back. Are you ready for what comes next? Daniel thought about Commander Whitaker, about 12 men in a photograph, about Tyler Morrison in a mine shaft, about 73 cancer deaths. I'm ready. Good. Sarah extended her hand. Welcome to the fight. They shook. The story broke at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. Defense contractor, cover-up Montana mining company, buried evidence of poisoning murder. By Sarah Chen. The New York Times. Daniel read it on his phone in the gymnasium. Emily beside him, Valor sleeping at their feet, a small bandage still visible on his flank where the burn was healing. The article was devastating. Every detail, every name. Photos of the 12 missing men, quotes from families, expert testimony about the contamination. and the video of Caldwell admitting everything. By 8 a.m. it had exploded. National news, cable coverage, social media trending. By 9 a.m., FBI agents arrived at the shelter, interviewed witnesses, collected evidence. By 10 a.m., Richard Caldwell was in custody. Daniel watched it on a TV in the shelter. Caldwell in handcuffs, being walked into the federal building in Helena, his expensive clothes rumpled, his confident smile gone. The news anchor spoke. Caldwell faces federal charges including conspiracy to commit murder, environmental crimes, obstruction of justice, and arson. If convicted, he faces life in prison. Emily whooped. Other people in the shelter cheered. Daniel just sat there, watching. Valor lifted his head, looked at him. "We did it, boy." The dog's tail thumped. Once, twice. Outside, through the gymnasium windows, the sun was rising over the mountains. The fire was 80% contained. The evacuation order would lift tomorrow. Pine Ridge would survive, and so would the truth. 2 weeks later, Daniel stood in a cemetery on a hillside overlooking Pine Ridge. The town spread below a rebuilding, smokestacks from temporary housing. Construction crews working, life returning. Frank Kowalski's funeral had ended 30 minutes ago. Most of the mourners had left, but Daniel remained. Frank had lived long enough to see Caldwell arrested, long enough to testify before the grand jury, long enough to know the truth had won. He died peacefully. His granddaughter said his last words were, "Tom Warren can rest now." The granddaughter approached Daniel now. She was young, maybe 25. She handed him a small wooden box. "Grandpa wanted you to have this." Inside was Frank's mining helmet, the one he'd worn for 30 years underground. A piece of history, a piece of trust. "Thank you," Daniel said quietly. She smiled through tears. "No, thank you. You gave him peace, Daniel." When she left, Daniel stood alone with Valor, looking at the helmet, at the town below. Emily appeared beside him. "You okay?" "Yeah, just thinking. About Frank, Whitaker, the 12 men, all the people who tried to do the right thing. You finished what they started." "We finished it." Emily was quiet for a moment. "Then Tyler Morrison's doing well. Ankle's healing. He wants to thank Valor in person." "We'll visit." His dad quit Caldwell, started his own construction company, already has 3 contracts. Good for him. They stood in silence, watching the town rebuild. Daniel's phone rang, a number he didn't recognize. He answered. "Hello, Mr. Reed, this is Margaret Whitaker, Commander Whitaker's widow." Daniel's breath caught. "Yes, ma'am. Sarah Chen told me what you did, how you found James's evidence, how you finished his mission." Her voice was soft, emotional. "I need to know. Did it matter? Did his death mean something?" Daniel looked at the town below, at the construction crews, at the EPA vehicles parked near the old mine, at the memorial being built for the 12 men. "Yes, ma'am, it meant everything." She was quiet. Then softly, "Thank you. Thank you so much. Your husband was a hero, a real one. What he did, it saved lives, is still saving them. Will you tell me about it someday? The whole story?" "Yes, ma'am, I'd be honored." When the call ended, Daniel looked at Valor. "One more thing we had to do, boy." The dog's tail swept once. Understanding. Whitaker's widow deserved to know her husband's sacrifice mattered, that his death wasn't in vain. Now she did. 3 weeks later, Daniel stood in the clearing where his tent had been. The land had escaped the fire, just barely, but it was safe. He'd spent the intervening weeks giving depositions, testifying before grand juries, doing interviews, being briefly famous. He hated it, but it was necessary. Caldwell's empire had collapsed. The company dissolved, properties seized, victims' families receiving compensation. The contaminated land designated for federal cleanup. 12 men officially declared murdered. Their families finally getting answers. The rail car had survived. The fire had gone right around it just as Emily predicted. It now sat in a federal evidence facility, every document cataloged and preserved. Emily pulled up in her truck, got out. She'd been hired by the EPA, leading the cleanup effort, finally getting to do the work she'd trained for. "Thought I'd find you here. Couldn't stay in town. Too many people wanting to talk." "You're a hero. I'm a guy who found a rail car. You're a guy who wouldn't let it go. There's a difference." She handed him a coffee. "I brought you something else." She pulled out a framed photograph, 8 by 10, black and white. It showed Daniel and Valor standing in front of the rail car, taken by Sarah Chen's photographer. The seal and his dog, guardians of the truth. Thought you might want it. Daniel took it, studied it, saw himself differently than he remembered. Saw someone who'd stood up instead of running. Thank you. You're staying? Yeah, I like it here. Might build a real house instead of living in a tent. Town could use you. Fire department's looking for volunteers. I'll think about it. Emily smiled. That's seal for yes. She walked back to her truck, paused. Jim Morrison wants to talk to you about building that house. Says he owes you. He doesn't owe me anything. Tell him that yourself. She drove away. Later that afternoon, Jim Morrison arrived with his son Tyler. The boy's ankle was in a walking cast, but he moved well. Tyler saw Valor and his face lit up. Can I pet him? Ask him. Tyler approached carefully, extended his hand. Can I pet you? Valor sniffed the hand, then sat, offered his head, permission granted. Tyler stroked the dog's fur, gently careful of the healing burn. Thank you for finding me. He did most of the work. He's the best dog ever. Valor's tail thumped. Jim Morrison shook Daniel's hand. I want to help build your house. No charge. It's the least I can do. You don't have to. I want to. Let me do something right, please. Daniel looked at the man's face, saw sincerity, determination. Okay, thank you. We'll start next week. I'll bring the plans by tomorrow. As father and son left, Daniel sat on the tailgate of his truck. Valor jumped up beside him. They sat in silence, watching the sun move across the sky, listening to the wind in the pines. For the first time in years, Daniel felt something unfamiliar. Peace, not the absence of conflict, but the presence of purpose completed. He pulled out his phone, dialed Master Chief Mitchell. Reed, saw you on the news. Looking good. The other guy in handcuffs, not you. Daniel laughed. Hey, Chief. You okay, son? Yeah, I'm good. Really good. You staying in Montana? I think so. Good. You found something worth fighting for, worth staying for. That's rare. Mitchell paused. You need anything you call. I will. Thanks, Chief. Semper Fi. Wrong branch. Yeah, stay safe. The line went dead. Daniel looked at Valor. What do you think? Should we build something permanent? Valor's tail thumped. Agreement. Okay then. Over the next weeks, the house took shape. Jim Morrison and his crew worked with precision and care. Other townspeople showed up to help. Frank's granddaughter brought lunch. Maggie brought coffee and those incredible biscuits. Tyler came after school, helping where he could, always spending time with Valor. The house rose from the clearing, not large, not fancy, but solid, honest, built with the same care Daniel brought to everything else. When it was finished, Daniel stood on the porch with Valor, looking out at the mountains. Emily arrived with a housewarming gift, a wooden sign for above the door. Thought you might like this. Daniel read it. Reed's Ridge. It's perfect. You've become part of this place. Might as well claim it. That evening, Daniel built a fire in the new stone fireplace, sat in a chair Jim had built by hand. Valor lay at his feet. He thought about the journey, from the desert where he'd failed, to this mountain town where he'd found redemption, about a rail car hidden in the forest, about evidence that refused to stay buried, about a dog who knew when to stop running, about 12 men who finally got justice, and about peace that came not from hiding, but from standing up. His phone buzzed. Email from Sarah Chen. Daniel opened it. A scanned letter. Handwritten. To whoever finds this, if you're reading these words, you listened to your instincts. You trusted your dog. You stayed when leaving was easier. That takes courage. I tried to expose Caldwell. Failed. Paid for it. But I don't regret trying. Some fights are worth fighting even when you know you might lose. You won. The evidence survived. The truth came out. That's all any of us can hope for. To leave the world a little better, a little more honest, a little more just. Thank you for finishing what I started. Now go live your life. Build something. Love something. Stay somewhere. You've earned it. Commander James Whitaker. USN Daniel read it twice. Then he folded the phone, put it away, looked at Valor. The dog's bandage was gone now, the burn healing into a scar, another mark of loyalty. Ready for tomorrow, boy. The dog stood, stretched, ready. Daniel stood too, walked to the window. The mountains stood around them, ancient, patient, witnesses to endings and beginnings. The wind carried the scent of pine and possibility. And in the quiet of that moment, man and dog stood together. Not running, not hiding, just being. Home, epilogue. Sometimes miracles don't arrive like lightning splitting the sky. Sometimes they come quietly, as a dog who refuses to keep walking, as a stranger who chooses to stay. as a truth that refuses to stay buried. In this story, 12 men were murdered for what they knew. 73 more died from poison buried in the ground. A town lived under the shadow of lies for 40 years, but one Navy SEAL and his dog chose to listen, to investigate, to fight, not because they were looking for a mission, but because when truth called, they answered. Perhaps that's how God works most often, not changing the world all at once, but placing something faithful beside us and waiting to see if we'll respect it. A loyal dog, a persistent scientist, a dying man willing to testify, a journalist who wouldn't let go. Small pieces. But together they changed everything. In your own life, you'll face moments like this. When leaving is easier than staying, when silence is safer than speaking, when fear is louder than conscience. In those moments, pay attention to what won't let you go. The persistent whisper, the loyal friend, the truth that keeps surfacing no matter how deep it's buried. That might be your miracle. Not thunder and lightning, but a quiet insistence that you were meant for more than running. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below. What moment stayed with you? Subscribe for more stories of loyalty, courage, and redemption. May God bless you and keep you. May He guide your steps when the path is unclear. May He place faithful companions on your journey when you need them most. And may you always have the courage to stay when staying matters.